Okay, let's talk about Logic and Conversation by Paul Grice. The aim of logic and conversation, the first one is formalist, maintain there are divergences between formal logical rules and govern inference and their natural language counterparts. They maintain that the formal logical rules are superior and that natural language suffers from certain defects that make it unsuitable for the purposes of constructing an ideal language for science. For informalists, disagreed and argue that the use of inference in science is not only the metric for assessing natural language construction, and that while formal languages are suitable for science, natural language inferences function perfectly well for some non-scientific uses. For Grice, Grice challenge the assumption in the debate that there are actually exist differences between formal language and natural languages. That is, he will investigate the possibility of developing a formal account of some natural language inferences that are not treated by classical logic. Before we continue, in the formalist, usually there is associated with the scientific thing, yeah. So it is absolute logic, whether you can say A can be B or B can be C. It is based on the physics language or education maybe, or in the science. So when it is applied in education, it is absolute logic. But informalists disagree that there is no kind of scientific uses. Logical inference. In propositional logic, 2 follows from 1. The logic 1. The US will invade Korea only if the UK will support the war effort. So if is representing the logic. If it is not the case that the UK will support the war effort, then it is not the case that the US will invade Korea. So, number 2 meaning, it is clear that it is restatement from logic number 1. The inference above is a clear instance of the rule of contraposition from the strict definition for the material conditional. So, logic deals with the condition. In the language, it is represented by the word if or whether. Examples of the basic phenomenon. Will you join the math club? I'm already in the philosophy club. Although B didn't directly answer the question asked by A, we have the intuition that B implied something like the following. I cannot or do not want to join the math club because I'm already in the philosophy club. So, when there's a conversation, usually the asker will ask in the form like this, like A, will you join the math club? But B will have indirect answer by saying I'm already in the philosophy club. Will is the yes no question, but B doesn't or didn't answer it with yes no question answer. Instead, B is using another sentence to answer A's questions. How might we understand the kind of implication that is at play in the case above? Yes, the answer is by using Grice's conversational implicature. Grice wants to introduce a notion of implication. The notion he wants to introduce can be captured as follows. A implied that P by uttering S, where A is a person, S a sentence, and P the proposition implied. What is important about this notion in the following? A implied that P is not equivalent to A said S. What one says by uttering a sentence is closely linked to the literal or conventional meaning of the sentence. What one implied by saying S is governed by a set of constraints that go beyond what person literally says. Conversational implicature is distinct from conventional implicature and is a species of non-conventional implicature. The cooperative principle. Make your conversational contribution such as is required at the stage at which it occurs by the accepted purpose of direction of talk exchange in which you are engaged. The cooperative principle is defended by the following view of conversation. Number one, conversations are not set of disconnected remarks. Participants recognize a common purpose of a set of purposes. There is a direction that is either fixed in the beginning of a pause over the course of the conversation. At each stage, what conventional moves are appropriate is limited by the purpose or direction. Nothing institutes being accomplished if any utterance can count as an appropriate continuation of it. So, during studying of the cooperative principle, there are following few that we can set up before we discuss further. The categories and maxims. Given the cooperative principle, 4 general categories governing conversation can be distinguished, and under each one further specific maxims can be articulated. So there are 4 maxims in what Grice has said or explained. The first one is quantity concerns what is said. The utterance must have concern what is said. Quality concerns what related what is said also. And manner concerns how things are said. Quantity. Okay, let's specify the quantity maxim. Number 1. Make your contribution. Grice said that make your contribution as informative as it is required for the current purpose of the exchange. So, for example, where you are asked about something, so you can answer based on what it is asked. The sentence, maybe the proportion of sentence and so on is quantity. Do not make your contribution more informative than it is required. Example, if you are assisting me in the mending a car, I expect your contribution to be neither more or less than it is required. If you are assisting me. If, for example, at a particular stage, I need 4 screws, I expect you to hand me 4 rather than 2 or 6. So, in the quantitative maxim, the speaker and also the hearer or the responder should contribute to what information is being asked or the purposes of the exchange of information. The next one, the quality. Try to make your contribution one that is true. Do not say what you believe to be false. So, the quality of the information on direction or exchange must have a high quality. It is the maxim that they must be true. Do not say that for which you lack adequate evidence. Example, I expect your contribution to be genuine and not spurious. If I need sugar as an ingredient in the cake you are assisting me to make, I do not expect you to hand me salt. If I need spoon, I don't expect a trick spoon made of rubber. So, for example, if other people want to help, eager to help you, yeah, you have to say what is must be truth. So there must not be a tricky expression or utterances. Relation. Be relevant. Make your conversational contribution one that is relevant to the purpose and direction of the conversation. Example, I expect a partner's contribution to be appropriate to immediate needs at each stage of the transaction. If I am mixing ingredients for a cake, I do not expect to be handed a good book or even uneven clothes. So this might be appropriate contribution at the later stage. Okay. So when there is a occurrence or maybe like interaction, there must be relevant to what we are going to propose. Manner. Be perspicacious. Avoid obstructivity of expression. Avoid ambiguity. Be brief. Be orderly. Avoid unnecessary prolixity. I expect a partner to, for example, I expect a partner to make it clear what contribution he is making and to execute his performance with a reasonable dispatch. Questions about the maxims. Does the analogy with other purpose-driven cooperative enterprises such as group baking or cake or fixing a car really line up with the conversation? Are these maxims exhaustive? Are these maxims possible culturally relative? Okay, please answer these questions in the comments column. Okay, and then I will respond after that. The relational basis of the cooperative principle. Why is obeying the cooperative principle relation? No. The first one is contract approach. One answer is that it follows from a contract that the speakers tacitly make with one another when they engage in conversation. Although Grice offers the contract as possible explanation of the cooperative principle, he thinks it cannot cover all of the cases in which conversation occurs and as a consequence disregards it. Instrumental approach. One can defend the rationality of the cooperative principle through instrumental reasoning. If one desires to receive the goals of the purpose of the conversation and the following the cooperative principle facilitates that goal, then one has reason to follow the cooperative principle is insofar as it facilitates the goals of the conversation. Cooperative principle maxim and conversational implication. Conversational implication can be modeled as function of three things: the assumption that participant is obeying the cooperative principle and the maxims, the fact what the person says bears some relation to the cooperative principle and the maxims, the fact if a maxim is exploited in some way, a conversational implication follows from what is said. Ways of failing to obey a maxim. Violate. One violates a maxim by failing to do what it requires, such as failing to obey the maxim, to not say what one believes to be false. So there is a maxim violation if the principles are not agreed by the speakers. It will be violating. Opts out. One opts out of obeying the cooperative principle and the maxim altogether by specifically indicating refusal to follow the cooperative principle. Clash. One's conversational contribution clashes with a maxim when they fail to fulfill two or more maxims because in the specific situation fulfilling two or maxim conflicts. So, for example, like if there is a clash or war between countries, usually the leaders will not obey the maxims or regulation cooperative principle. Instead of they will tend to clash and refuse others' arguments and so on. Flout. One flouts a maxim when they bluntly fail to fulfill it in conversation, where it is presupposed by the members of the party that the maxim can be fulfilled without clashing with any of the other maxims. The conversational problem. The conversational problem, if a participant in conversation assumes that the other participants in the conversation are following the cooperative principle, are able to fulfill all the other maxims without clashing, and they are not opting out in the view of blatant violation of maxim, the participant must reconcile what it is said with the apparent violation of the maxim. Conversational implication characterized. Speaker conversation implicate P if and only if S implicates P when cooperation S is presumed to be observing the cooperative principle, determinacy, the supposition that S believes that P is required to make S utterances consistent with the cooperative principle, mutual knowledge. S believes or knows and expects S to believe that S believes that is able to determine that it is true. So this is the characteristic of conversational implication proposed by Grice. Working out conversational implicature 2. Calculability assumption. Although conversational implication can be intuitively grasped, they must be able to be worked out. To work out conversational implication, a hearer will generally rely on following: the conventional meaning of the words used together with the identity of any references that might be involved, the cooperative principles and its maxims, the context, linguistics, and other utterances, the fact or supposed fact that relevant items falling under 1 to 4 are available to both participants, and both participants know or assume this to be the case. The general pattern of working out a conversational implication is the following. A has said that P, there is no reason to suppose that he is not observing the maxims, or at least the cooperative principle. He could not be doing this unless he thought that Q, he knows that I know that he knows, that I can see the supposition that he thinks that is required. Now this is the general pattern of the conversational implication. Samples, Group A. Cases in which no maxim is violated, or at least is not clear that any maxim has been violated. A said, I'm out of petrol. B, there's a garage around the corner. B would be infringing the maxim be relevant because the answer is not suitable with the condition, unless he thinks it is possible that garage is open and has petrol to sell. So he implicates that garage is, or at least may be, open. So there is no connection between two utterances, but if A can actually clarify with sorry, what do you mean? For example, can you make it clearer? And so on. So B also can answer the next question. Examples, Group B. Cases in which maxim is violated, but its violation to be explained by the supposition of clash with another maxim. Context. A is planning with B an itinerary for a holiday in France. Both know that A wants to see his friend C, if to do so would not involve to create a prolongation of his journey. A. Where does he live? B. Somewhere in the south of France. There is no reason to suppose that B is opting out. His answer is, as he well knows, less informative than is required to meet A needs. The infringement of the quantity can only be explained by the supposition that B is aware that to be more informative would be to say something that infringe quality. Don't say what you lack evidence for. So B implicates that he doesn't know in which town C lives. Okay. Group C. Cases in which one exploits a procedure by which a maxim is flouted for purpose of getting in conversational implicature by means of something of nature of a figure of speech. In cases such as this, though some maxim is violated at the level of what is said, the hearer is entitled to assume that the maxim, or at least the overall cooperative principle, is observed at the level of what is implicated. For example, violating the first maxim of quantity. Women are women. War is war. It is violating the maximum quantity because it is repeated definition, repeated term to be defined. Cancellation. A conversational implication can be cancelled in a particular case on the assumption that it is possible to opt out of observing the cooperative principle. Cancellation can occur explicitly, as in when one says they are opting out, or implicitly by saying something that against the backdrop of what has been said implies that they are opting out the cooperative principle. Kathy said, are the roses fresh? Bill, they are in the fridge. They are not fresh. The implication after B is that there are fresh roses in the fridge, since a fridge keeps things fresh. However, at C, Bill has cancelled that implication by using question mark. indeterminacy. In some cases, it may be determined that something is being conversationally implied, but because of various ways in which one could calculate or expand what it is possibly going wrong, it will be indeterminate what one has implied. Generative assumption. Conversational implicature exists because of the fact that cooperative presumption, determinacy, and mutual knowledge considered held. Grice rather. Other things equal, it is preferable to postulate conversational implicature rather than multiple senses of words, conventional semantic implicatures, or semantic presupposition, because conversational implicatures can be derived from independently motivated psychosocial principles. So, in summary, Grice explains that there are kind of maxims, cooperative principles, and the conversational implicature from what speakers and maybe hearers can agree with. But if it is like they don't agree, it will be violating the maxims. Thank you very much. Okay, the next task is to find out the examples of every maxim, and then you can write in the comments. Thank you very much. See you.